Hi students, I welcome you all to this family of physiology. Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Ajit, Assistant Professor in this department. And from today onwards, we'll be starting our regular classes. The initial days we'll have classes of this sort where you'll be provided with the recording videos of the classes. Once we have all the corona being settled, we'll start our interactive sessions in the lecture halls. Mine being the first class, I intend to introduce you to physiology. So, in this class, I'll be explaining to you what is physiology, what are the what is the extent of physiology, how you would approach this subject. You start learning physiology, how will you learn the subject? What are the things that you should take care when you start to learn this subject? A little bit about the history of physiology and also about the main component of physiology, which is homeostasis. And in between classes, I might use my mother tongue. മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കാനുള്ള സാധ്യത കൂടുതലാണ്. So there might be students who are from North India or from Lakshadweep who are not good at understanding or comprehending this language. So I would recommend them to learn this language as soon as possible, because anyway in the next year you have to interact with your subjects or the patients, real patients, and it would be very awkward if you don't know to handle Malayalam. So I would recommend you to learn it fast. Start here. We'll start this session. അപ്പോൾ ആദ്യം പറയാനുള്ള കാര്യം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഫിസിയോളജി എന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കുക. വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഫിസിയോളജി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഇറ്റ്സ് എ സ്റ്റഡി ഓഫ് ലൈഫ്, or rather, as our HODs used to tell us, the story of life. We are going to learn in and out everything about the life, especially the life mechanisms of life that occurs in human beings, Homo sapiens. So, first thing that you should understand when you learn physiology is how extensive is the subject. ഈ ഫിസിയോളജിയുടെ എക്സ്റ്റെൻഡ് അറിയുന്നത് എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ, at one border, at the lower border, we know that cell is the single most the primary unit of life, because we all had formed from a single cell organism by the process of evolution. Cell is the basic functional unit of an organism. But physiology at a very molecular level, at a very molecular level, this physiology is going to go in to a cell and also deal with some of the chemical messengers inside the cell. It might go in to the nucleus, to the genome, and it might reach a very subtle level. Can even reach the level of the electromagnetism involved in a cell. അത്രയും ആഴത്തിലേക്ക് physiology ഇറങ്ങിച്ചെല്ലാം. In between, it has a very hazy border which it shares with your biochemistry. At a very grosser level, at a very grosser level, if you see, you will understand that physiology is sharing its borders with internal medicine, where you see a patient coming in The patient is examined for a disease and you find that patient has disease. And you start thinking why the disease, and then you have to have a very proper knowledge of physiology to understand his pathology. It again shares its borders with pathology, with microbiology, with medicine, with gynecology, every subject that you see, neonatology, everything, every subject it has borders with. All these borders are very hazy. At the same time, when you come to our department, you will find that there are two labs. One lab is involved in teaching you experiments that used to be done in physiology labs long years back. So there's a history involved in those labs. You will see those labs have a lot of things that stand unused, used to be very frequently used at one time. What are these? What is that lab called? That lab will be called as the experimental lab. So that also holds as a very important border of physiology, where it shares its border with animal experiments. When you were doing your +2 classes, you would have done experiments of intestine dissection on cockroaches, sometimes on frogs. Here also, you will be seeing that you will be at one time students used to dissect out the heart of a frog live and used to record its beating. At one time, the postgraduates of all the institutes used to anesthetize a dog and dissect out its various organs, its heart. This used to be done, but now, since we already know the mechanisms, we don't do it now because of the ethical issues involved. We don't do it now. So, what I want to emphasize was the border of physiology extending to animals. In foreign countries, you can also see people doing experiments on lobsters and finding out various new things. And still, experiments are going on in different organisms like guinea pigs. And these researches stand out very different from the normal researches going on because these are very solid researches which involve animals where we can find out the real mechanisms involved. So that was one border of physiology. You have a border of physiology where, for example, when you study hemodynamics or when you study about lung volumes, you'll come across Boyle's law, Charles' law. I hope you have heard about all these laws. These laws form the basis of physics. You might also learn about action potentials, different potentials, the potential differences. All these are part of physics. You might also learn about radiation, the effect of radiation on human body. All these are involved as a sub as a part of physics. ഇതെല്ലാം എന്താണെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഇതെല്ലാം this forms a branch of physiology which is called biophysics, which you luckily you don't have to learn this, but postgraduates always learn this as a separate branch, and there's also an important paper for them, a separate paper, question paper for them, which involves biophysics. So what I want to emphasize is this much, how much extensive is the subject which you are learning. And as undergraduates in this college, you will be learning a very small part of physiology. You will not be going to that extent into all those things. And those who are really interested in physiology can go into every levels, to deeper levels, to molecular levels, to genetic levels, to deeper equations of physics that maintain our body. All these things you can go on. It's okay that but luckily you will not get so much time to go through all these because you have such a vast array of topics to be learned in a very short period of time. A short period എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ you will get only 10 months or so. Within this 10 months, you have to learn all these things. You are going to learn the whole mechanism of your body, how your body is functioning, how your body is sleeping, how your body, all the mechanisms, everything that is involved, which is normally involved in your body, or how the normal body is functioning in this manner. You are going to study in and out. So that is what you are going to learn in physiology. So that stands as an important part of my introduction. Okay. Now what I have to tell you is about a term which is called scientific temper. You know what is scientific temper? Scientific temper എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ what is scientific temper? I'll show you. So scientific temper എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ this is a very important quality that you should maintain throughout your course, your MBBS course, and if you are doing an MD, if you are doing a after post graduation, if you are still studying, never lose this. That's called scientific temper. എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം പറയാം. I will give you an example with the help of a very hazy border of physiology which is called yoga. I hope you all have heard about yoga by now. Yoga is so much extensively practiced in India, and at international levels we even have put forth a National Yoga Day. ഇത്രയും എക്സ്റ്റെൻസീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള യോഗ which is a contribution from India, ആർഷഭാരത സംസ്കാരത്തിന്റെ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന ഈ യോഗ, this is a very dangerous topic. When you come to learn yoga, which is actually part of physiology, it's actually a border of physiology, a lot of researches are still going on in this topic, that is especially the asanas in yoga. A lot of researches are going on. When you start learning this yoga, you'll find out that there are too many things that are not really scientific. There are actually pseudo-scientific theories which are prevailing in this topic. Now, in that sense, be very careful when you learn this yoga. ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, ഞാൻ ഇത് യോഗയെ പറ്റി സംസാരിച്ച സ്ഥിതിക്ക് ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും ഈ ക്ലാസ് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നിങ്ങൾ യൂട്യൂബിൽ ചിലരെങ്കിലും കുറച്ച് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ചില ബുദ്ധിമാന്മാരെങ്കിലും യോഗയെ പറ്റിയിട്ടൊന്ന് യൂട്യൂബിൽ പോയി സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യാൻ സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. വെറുതെ യോഗയെ കുറിച്ച് സെർച്ച് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, എന്തെങ്കിലും ഡിബേറ്റ്സ് ഒക്കെ കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, യു വിൽ അണ്ടർസ്റ്റാൻഡ് one thing, that lot of people, like all those Ayurveda physicians, all those homeopathic physicians, all those Prakriti Chikitsa physicians, they call them Prakriti. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാം ഈ ആയുഷ് മന്ത്രാലയത്തിന്റെ കീഴിൽ എല്ലാവരും are definitely yoga preachers. And for your excitement, you will also find that some of the great doctors who have MBBS or MD, or suppose who are cardiologists, would also prescribe yoga. I don't know why they do that, but that is totally unscientific. And you will also find that some people who will say, for example, like Shirshasana, getting down or hanging down with head downwards, is going to increase your blood supply to the brain. Increase your blood supply to the brain. ഇങ്ങനെ പറയുന്ന ആയുഷ് മന്ത്രാലയത്തിലെ ഡോക്ടേഴ്സിനെ I know. I definitely know people who tell this. I know some പ്രകൃതി ചികിത്സ people, പ്രകൃതി സ്നേഹികളല്ല, പ്രകൃതി ചികിത്സ, naturopathy who preaches that this is true. What is true? According to them, if you do Shirshasana, you know Shirshasana, the blood supply to your brain is going to increase. ഇത് പറയുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. By learning physiology, you will know that this is not possible. There is only venous pooling in the brain when you do it There is only venous pooling. No fresh blood enters into, no extra fresh blood enters into the brain. Actually, there's a decrease in the amount of blood flow to the brain. ഇതുപോലെ തന്നെ വേറെ രസകരമായ കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. ഒരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ കൂടി പറയാം സയന്റിഫിക് ടെമ്പറിന്റെ. അത് ഇതാണ്. Let me come to this. ഓക്കെ, അത് ഇതാണ്. ഒരു സ്വാമി, പേര് പറയുന്നില്ല, ഇറ്റ്സ് എ വെരി ഗ്രേറ്റ് സ്വാമിജി who one day when I was watching YouTube, when I was just searching through all those YouTube channels, I found him talking about sleeping in north, sleeping by putting your head in north direction. The age old belief ആണ്. When I was a kid, I was asked by my parents, no, never to put your bed in such a way that your head faces to the north. I was so excited to listen to this. Oh, why? I always ask why, and they say you will not have good sleep. I used to sleep in north. I just tried myself as a young budding scientist when I was like in fifth standard or fourth standard. I remember I used to keep my bed onto the in such a way that my head faces north and I could sleep properly. There's no issue. Now let me come to the scientific temper. Now, do you know what these new age gurus are telling you? They will imbibe the knowledge of science and they will mix it with your belief systems and they will present a sweet ball of pseudoscience into your mouth, asking you to close your eyes. അതെങ്ങനെയുണ്ടാവും പറഞ്ഞുതരാം. അതായത് നിങ്ങൾ if you sleep with head to the north, what will happen? Do you know what will happen? You are actually the earth in which you are lying down is rotating, right? Yeah, definitely rotating. And the earth has a north pole and a south pole, right? Yeah, definitely. So it has a magnetic field, right? Oh, definitely. Very good. Oh, that's fine. He's very good. He's saying all good things, right? He's saying science, right? Yeah. So, and your body has blood, right? Yeah. Yes, my body has blood. And inside the blood, you have hemoglobin, and hemoglobin has iron, right? Yeah. Hemoglobin has iron. You are right. And so, the iron will be attracted by magnets, right? Yeah, definitely. Iron will be attracted by magnets. He's good. He's nice, man. He's saying the right things. So, what will happen if you sleep with head to the north? All the iron will flow to the head. All the iron will flow to the head. It's like that. All the iron will flow to the head. The blood എല്ലാം തലയിലെത്തും എന്നർത്ഥം. അതുകൊണ്ട് what will happen? Too much blood in the head and you will not be able to sleep. മനസ്സിലായില്ലേ? ഇതാണ് സയന്റിഫിക് ടെമ്പറിനെ ബ്രേക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന രീതിയിൽ കയറി വരുന്ന സാധനം. ഇതിനെ കൂളായിട്ട് വളരെ സിമ്പിളായിട്ട് വി ഹാവ് ഡെഫിനറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള സയന്റിഫിക് പ്രിൻസിപ്പിൾസ് ഉണ്ട് ബൈ വിച്ച് വി ക്യാൻ ബ്രേക്ക് ഓൾ ദീസ് തിങ്സ്. ബട്ട് ഫോർ എ വെരി കോമൺ മാൻ ഹു ഈസ് ഹാവിങ് എ ലിറ്റിൽ സയന്റിഫിക് നോളജ് ആൻഡ് ഹി ഹിയേഴ്സ് ടു ദിസ്, sometimes some of you who are hearing to my talk may also think, yeah, that Swami was true, right? But that's not true. It doesn't happen like this. But ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള സ്വീറ്റ് ബോൾസ് which comes to your mouth, be aware of this when you study your physiology. അപ്പോൾ അതിനെ മറികടക്കാനുള്ള വഴികൾ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ്? What are the things by which you can overdo this? Is by using science as a tool. Science as a tool when you learn, and also to question everyone who teaches you anything. Just ask them why. If the professor doesn't know the answer, he has two options. The first option is to scold the person who is asking the question, or there is also one option to say that this is not necessary for you, or this is way ahead of you, or trying to say that okay, you study what you need to study, okay, you don't go to the unnecessary things. These are the way he might tell you. One option for a professor. Being a professor, I can say this. The next option is the professor can tell you, yes, I can give you the answer, I will just check the answer. I'm not a computer, I have to refer a after referring, I will tell you the answer. And you can tell you the answer. There are two ways. And if there's a specific doubt where you want to question the scientific temper involved, you have to definitely ask your professor, is there anything that is bothering you related to your scientific temper? And remind you, scientific temper has nothing to do with your logic. It is even a bit higher level than your logic. Being said that, I will move to the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is very simple. Knowledge is everywhere now. If you have any doubt, you just ask Google. You have all the answers. അതിൻ്റെ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞത്. You will see lot of people explaining the same thing in different ways, and you are confused. That is the point you will reach now because you have too much knowledge. And the only way you can make out something is to hear to a debate where you can equally have opponents talking on the same topic in two different ways. You'll be confused. So there you need the help of a professor when you learn physiology, and he might give you something called wisdom. What is the difference between these two? വളരെ simple ആണ്. If you are inside a forest, you have two options to answer that you are inside a forest. Two ways of answering or understanding that you are inside a forest. One is saying that you are in between the trees. So the view of a forest when you are in the forest is that you will understand in all directions you are in between trees, but you have never seen the forest. To see the forest in real sense requires an intuition that runs inside you when you are in the forest. Otherwise, you have only one option, that is to fly up and see that you are inside the forest, or to use a drone in a new technological environment. You can use a drone, just fly the drone and see the picture taken by the drone. You will see that you are in the forest. So that view of a forest you will totally miss when you are inside. And since you are starting your physiology classes and you are inside, you are starting to jump into physiology, you will be inside the trees. So that is a very dangerous situation to be. So at one point of time before ending this MBBS course as a whole, you should acquire wisdom. You should be able to get the intuition, or you should be able to get a holistic approach of all the things that you have learned together, and that is what is required, and that is wisdom. I hope all of you who are listening to this class will acquire wisdom one day before you become a doctor. That is very important. Okay, being said that, we will move to our next slide where I will be illustrating you all those basic things. So these are basic things you already know about. This is a slide which gives you a fair description of the different levels of organization, from a chemical level to an organism level. This is the final level we have, and that is the organism level. So this is actually what is shown here is nothing but your evolution in a big sense is shown here. There's nothing much to explain because you already know about this, but that thing which needs an explanation would be the next slide, and that is something that tells you about a very important thing, that is the concept of internal environment. This is called the internal environment. Just see the slides and try to understand what do you mean by this internal environment. What is shown here, nothing but internal environment. So in the first part of the slide, you can see amoeba here. So what does this amoeba say? The amoeba say that I am a single-celled organism I have only one cell. Outside my cell, I have the external space, external, and my inside is my internal. At the same time, when you move from here to a multicellular organism, a multicellular organism, you will find cell number 1, cell number 2, cell number 3, cell number 4, cell number 100, cell number 1000, cell number million, everything will find. And what you find interesting is outside cell is not outside the body of the organism. I repeat, outside the cell, outside the cell, this part, outside the cell is not outside the organism, it's still within the organism. And so everything that is outside the cell, you can call it the internal environment. So everything that's outside the cell of the organism and within the body of the organism, you can call it internal environment. And that would involve two main parts. What are those parts? One is called the interstitial fluid. This one, interstitial fluid. This blue one that you see here is the interstitial fluid just outside cell. So it's in this interstitial fluid that the cells are dipped in. Cells are dipped in the interstitial fluid, and to the other side, you can see here the blood vessel. See, this compartment as such is called the internal environment. Is it called? Called the internal environment. Sorry, not the internal environment. This is called the intravascular component. I'm very sorry about that. This is not called the internal environment. The whole interstitial fluid and the blood vessels, including the plasma, both are called the internal environment. What do you call the blood vessel? Where it's a vessel which carries blood. This is called the intravascular component. Intravascular component. So intravascular component or intravascular space. So we have intravascular space, just a space where the blood is flowing, and outside the intravascular space and outside the cell, but within the organism, you have the interstitial space. The interstitial space. So this is what makes a single-celled amoeba different from a multicellular organism, and thereby you will learn about a new space inside the body, and that is called the internal environment. The internal environment, very important to learn about this. Okay. Now, being said that, why have you learned about such an important space, or why do I say that this space is very important? I say that this space is very important because this is that space which maintains homeostasis. In this slide, you can see what a homeostasis means, right? Homeostasis means the same is the homeo, and stasis means to stand or stay. So it means that the body stays the same. Body always stays the same. It's true, right? Let me tell you an example of your blood pressure, which always remains the same. It remains within a normal limit, right? Systolic BP always stays in and around 120 millimeters of mercury. Your diastolic BP always remains in and around 80 millimeters of mercury. There might be some differences which happens according to your emotional disturbances, but still it might come to normal within a few minutes or so. So your body regulates your internal parameters every time. It always remains normal. You know what is the normal level of your sodium inside your body? It comes in and around 135 milliequivalents per liter, and that doesn't change. That always comes in between this range. Even though you you drink, you take in a lot of salt inside your body, the sodium levels in the body doesn't increase that much. It will always be within this speculated range, and that range is maintained by your body. That is what it means to remain the same, even though there are external influences. One more example, if I say you are in a very, very cold atmosphere in Himalayas, നിങ്ങൾ യോഗ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി ഹിമാലയയിൽ പോയി ഏതോ ഒരു പൊട്ടം പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവിടെ ഇരുന്ന് മേലോട്ട് നോക്കി കുറേ നേരം യോഗ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. ഇരുന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ എന്ത് സംഭവിച്ചു? ഒന്നും സംഭവിച്ചില്ല. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തണുപ്പ് വന്നു, നിങ്ങളുടെ മേലെല്ലാം ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് വിറയ്ക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി. When you check your body temperature, you will find that being in Himalayas doesn't drop your body temperature. It always remains the same. That is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. In and around 98.6 degree Fahrenheit, temperature is always maintained in your body. That's another example for homeostasis. So, ഇവിടെ പറഞ്ഞു വന്ന കൺസെപ്റ്റ് ഇതാണ്. ബോഡി എപ്പോഴും നോർമലായി മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് ഹീമോസ്റ്റാസിസ് എന്ന് പറയും. അത് എങ്ങനെ, ഹൗ ഹോമിയോസ്റ്റാസിസ് ഈസ് മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻഡ്, not hemostasis, it's homeostasis. How homeostasis is maintained in the body? How homeostasis is maintained in the body എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിനെയാണ് ലേണിംഗ് ഫിസിയോളജി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Both are the same. Physiology എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ is nothing but how homeostasis is maintained. It's the same, very simple to understand. Coming to the next slide, this is how homeostasis is maintained. But അതിന്റെ control systems എന്തൊക്കെയാണ്? What are the control mechanisms that are involved in maintaining homeostasis? ഇത് പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് 3 control systems ആണ് ഇവിടെ കാണുന്നത് അല്ലേ? എന്താണ്? ആദ്യം we have to detect. It's very simple. Just detect, integrate, then adjust. Very simple. Detect, integrate, and adjust. These are the 3 things that comes here. That's how the body is designed. Body designed ചെയ്തത് ആരുമല്ല, it's designed by evolution in such a way that it can detect, it can integrate, and then it can make adjustments. That's how homeostasis is happening. Coming to the next slide, we go little deep into the control mechanisms. ഇതെല്ലാം concepts മാത്രമാണ്. You will learn about all these in deep detail. ഇവിടെ control systems 2 control systems ആണ്. One is called the local mechanisms, which is called the intrinsic mechanisms. Intrinsic mechanism നമ്മൾ local mechanism എന്ന് പറയും. And then we have the extrinsic mechanism, which is called neural, which may be either neural or endocrine mechanisms. Neural ആയിട്ടുള്ള nervous system ഇൻവോൾവ് ചെയ്തതാവാം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ endocrine system ഇൻവോൾവ് ചെയ്തതാവാം. ഇങ്ങനെ വരുന്ന മെക്കാനിസംസ് ഇതിനെ നമ്മൾ extrinsic mechanisms എന്ന് പറയും. We have 2 mechanisms, right? Can you just think about a local mechanism that acts in our body? വളരെ സിമ്പിൾ ആണ്. Local mechanism താഴെ എഴുതി വായിച്ചു നോക്കുക. Controls are self-serving for the organ in which they occur. So both these divisions are based on the viewpoint of an organ or a cell. The cellന്റെ viewpointലാണ് ഇത് പറയുന്നത്. What does that mean? Suppose there is a vasoconstriction. So ഒരു cell. Supposing there is a cell here. Okay. Let me explain this. ഇവിടെ ഒരു cell ഉണ്ട്. This is a cell, right? This is a cell. This is the nucleus of the cell, and there is a blood vessel which is coming near to the cell. Like this, a blood vessel is running. എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കും. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ just think, due to some reasons the blood vessel in this part is shrinking. എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കാം. There is a shrinking in this part. Okay. ഇത്രയും ഭാഗം ഹൃദയം shrink ചെയ്തു എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കാം. This is that part. I will redraw that. Now it has become like this. See? The blood vessel is now like this. There is a shrinking. ഈ shrinking നടന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കും? Or let me show the whole blood vessel has shrunken. എന്ന് കാണിക്കാം. Okay. After this point, the blood vessel is very narrow now. There's something has happened at this point. At this point, something has happened. Some pathology has happened, and the blood vessel is shrinking now. This cell here is capable of making the blood vessel dilate. You know how this cell can synthesize lot of chemicals outside like this. ഇങ്ങനെ chemicalsനെ എന്ത് ചെയ്യാൻ കഴിയും? All these chemicals that are released out by this cell can cause the blood vessel to dilate. Dilate എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ വികസിക്കുക എന്നർത്ഥം. So this cell can release chemicals. It need not have a help from any other systems in the body. The cell itself can make this blood vessel dilate out, and it can restore its own blood supply. That is an example for the intrinsic mechanism, which is explained here. We have the extrinsic mechanism, which is the mechanism which is involved in the body, which is most important to learn in controlling homeostasis. ഇതിൽ രണ്ട് systems involved ആണ്. This is a very important system. Endocrine system is very important. You also have nervous system, which is also very important, but endocrine is very important. And all these things will be learned in great detail in the days to come. You will learn about all these systems separately. This is just an introduction മാത്രമാണ്. And I will just introduce to you how an endocrine system is working as a vast system which controls or regulates by itself. The whole thing what is shown in the slide is actually how a cell or a cell controls another cell, that cell controls another cell, and through a sequence of cellular connections are involved in regulating something in the body. Just a concept. Okay, so just let me explain how this is. Okay, just think that this cell what you see here, is a cell in the brain, in the hypothalamus. Okay. Hypothalamus is just an organ, a group of nuclei in the brain, which is otherwise called the head ganglion, or it is a master of all the endocrine secretions. So what I am shown here is, for the time's sake, this is hypothalamus. Okay. Now just think, hypothalamus. Have you heard of hypothalamus? Hypothalamus. Okay. Okay. For the time being, just think. There is an organ here. This is a cell. A group of cells together, and this is an organ. Now this organ requires a hormone to be released. This is the hormone shown here. The down corner is shown a hormone. Now this hormone, what you see here, requires to be produced. This hormone requires to be produced. But for producing this hormone, a sequence starts from your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus synthesizes a protein. See this protein here? This is a protein which is synthesized, which is called a hormone. This hormone is synthesized from this hypothalamus, now the big cell, and this gets released into the blood, comes and acts into the second cell. This is the second cell I've shown here, and it acts on a receptor which can receive this hormone. It acts on a receptor here shown in blue, and from here just see this second cell produces another hormone shown as a heart here. This is the second hormone which is released. Now this hormone comes and acts on another cell, a third cell, acts on the receptor, and it releases our third hormone. This hormone now will go and act on the organ which has a receptor here, like the cell had, this cell had, every cell had a receptor. So in the same way, the organ cells also have this receptor, and so this hormone can act. This hormone can act, and we have the effects. See, the effects are there. Now, just suppose if the hormones released are too much in number. This one is too much in number. This one is too much in number, and the organ doesn't need this much of hormones to be released. What do we do? Now what happens is this hormones released at each level has a capacity to inhibit its own father who synthesized, or the father cell who synthesized. Just see this hormone up here. Up here you can see that this hormone can easily inhibit its father cell. See? Can inhibit here. And what you see here is a receptor which actually receives this hormone, but the action is to stop. So here we have learned a very important concept. We had a receptor in blue here, see, a receptor R in blue, and this, whenever which this was activated, there was an increase in hormone synthesis. And here we have a receptor R which, when acted upon, will cause a decrease in synthesis, or a stoppage of synthesis of a particular hormone. So what does that mean? A decrease in the red and an increase in the blue. What does that mean? It means that it's not the hormone that is more important, maybe the receptor. So don't forget that when you are studying too much about the hormones release, no, don't forget about the receptors. So what I wanted to emphasize was the importance of receptors that most of us tend to forget. Now here we have the same hormone which can do a lot of things, but based on what receptors it's going to act, the action will vary. That's very important. So what happens is, each hormone, see this last hormone here downstairs, this hormone can move and inhibit its own father, its grandfather here, also its grandfather here, right? You see, because everywhere we have receptors. Here we have receptors, here we have receptors, we have a red receptor. That is what I wanted to emphasize. That is the concept of feedback regulation, which is an automatic regulation of a system which acts by itself. The system doesn't need a support from outside, it happens by itself. That is the way evolution has kicked forward. The evolution has moved forward in such a way that the complex organisms are so designed that there are too many systems which maintain homeostasis by self-regulatory mechanisms. I repeat, self-regulatory mechanisms. You learn what a huge number of self-regulatory mechanisms in the body, and you will also understand after learning physiology that you don't need an external X or a Y to kickstart your body. Some people used to say, when I was a kid, some people had a spooky knowledge, a spooky theory which used to stay, they used to say this to me. See, everything that is in this, every electronic things that you use needs current, right? So you have to plug in, then only it will start. You need some battery, right? True. So your body also needs a battery, something that comes from outside, like a current, like electricity. Something should come from outside, right? Very important. Don't lose scientific temper. These are the places where you should be very careful when you learn physiology. I just told a very important point to you. This was told to me when I was a kid. I still remember one person told this to me. He was a he was a believer of he was a great believer, and he was trying to make me a believer of God. So this was the concept that he put forward for me, and I was searching behind this for a long period of time because when I was a kid, I can't learn physiology. I was not in a situation where I can learn physiology being a kid. But now I can clearly understand that the body is a system which doesn't need anything from outside. What you need from outside also, you will get it from outside. That is why you have hunger. You need electricity, right? You don't need electricity, you need food. Energy source is food. And for taking food, your same body will make hunger inside you so that you go and take food. You know how hunger is created inside your body? The same hypothalamus is, is that organ or that nuclei in the brain which will make you feel hungry, and that will make you search for food, that will make you survive, and that will give you energy, and similarly you will live forward. The system, what I want to emphasize is again and again that the system is self-regulatory. The organism as a whole is self-regulatory, and this might also crush if it moves beyond a certain limit. That is also very important. If you crush your body under a bus tire, the system cannot maintain homeostasis. If you crush your body, it can't maintain homeostasis. So everything that is self-regulatory has a limit. I repeat, everything that is self-regulatory has a limit. And that ends this class on Introduction of Physiology. See you in the next class. See you in the next class. In the next class, I will be teaching you about blood. We start with blood. That's it. Thank you.